So, welcome. Now, I'd been sort of thinking about, I like to do these sessions really to answer the needs that I see out there. So I do lots of coaching. I absolutely love it. And inherently, time and time again, similar things come up. And that's totally natural, isn't it? Because we're all human beings. And, generally, we come across similar issues, and pulling all ourselves and our heads together, we can usually find solutions to them. So one of the big ones that I find is people come into property. So they may have read a couple of books. They'll often start with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then they might move on to, multiple other, there's so many, and multiple streams of property income, all of these kind of different books. And they get really excited. And then quite often they'll buy a course. And that's generally, let's say a couple of a couple of £100 course, and then suddenly they're investing in thousands of pounds in a course, and then they've got all this information and they're totally overwhelmed. They don't really know which way to start. And even with a bit of coaching and mentoring, you can still feel a little bit like, I just don't know, rabbit in headlights, or as we like to call it, the shiny penny syndrome, where it's kind of like, I want to do everything. I want to do that. I want to do that. Oh, that sounds good. Oh, I love that. I love that. So that is what we are going to cover today, is to how to go through that. And I've got multiple steps here of what we can actually do to enable us to see through the overwhelm, because we're always going to have a certain amount of overwhelm. I've been doing a couple of new courses recently, and there is some overwhelm there. I'm a bit like, oh my gosh, they make it sound so simple, but I know I've got that kind of gut pit feeling in my stomach where I've got that. In fact, I'm feeling it right now, really nervous about how I'm going to be able to get that implemented and then get success, because sometimes we're terrified of just the success, aren't we? So that's what we're going to cover off today. So we're actually live on YouTube, and we're here on Clubhouse. So, and this will be going onto YouTube as well in shorts. So I like to break these down into bite-sized chunks as well to help guide everyone get there. So please, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Emma Howitt Pure Abodes. And please do, guys, if you know anyone who is early or even experienced in their property journey and just have that overwhelm, they're not quite sure which way to go, you see them doing lots of different things, then do ping them now. That would be great. So if we can, thanks, Ali. And I did see, Ali, you have messaged me this morning. I will come back to you. So yeah, do ping, if you might, 6 people to invite them on here, and so that they can share as well what we are up to, and just help people learn those different skills. Because quite often, isn't it, it's the things where we feel, well, actually that wasn't necessarily anything new, but my goodness, I really needed to hear that today. So it's kind of that kind of thing when we're working through who can we really talk to and who can I sort of help to do that. So there we go. I've just multitasked and done a bit of pinging within the Clubhouse room. Okay, so let's get started then. I'm just pouring my cup of tea on what we do. So as I say, this whole kind of overwhelm, what might it be? So generally it is when you've started a course, or you're further on in your journey and you just are a little bit like, I've tried this and now I kind of need to grow or to move forward, or things aren't happening for you, things aren't going very well. That might be also the case. But also I find that we come into property and we just talk about property, and you'll hear only a few people out there talking about property business. And that has been over the years my kind of big challenge. Is I come from a business background, and a lot of property. I remember going to see a great chap called Martin Riley, who who gives fantastic advice, is I suppose a coach, a mentor, a coach, I think. And he comes from an engineering background. And I remember saying, Martin, I'm so confused with my business. Normally in a business, you have a product that you make or service, and you sell that service. You find the kind of people who might want that service and you sell it to them, and it's fairly easy. But when you look at property, it's kind of like, well, there's multiple different sort of properties. There's multiple different places where you can find them, and there's multiple different ways that you can fund them. So inherently, on the outset, it doesn't seem like a particularly clear rinse and repeat strategy, because inherently that's what we want, doesn't it? So let's say, you're selling a course, let's say it's property, you're selling a property course, and you are, and you've got it on Kajabi, it's all set up, you've got all the information in there, and you're basically selling to, let's say, entrepreneurial kids coming out of university. So therefore it would reflect that, wouldn't it? So therefore it would have a price point that was really accessible to that kind of person. It would be talking to those people. You would be advertising in those areas. They probably love it that it's on Kajabi, because that's fairly user friendly, although I'm sure the youngsters have got much cooler things to do. So you have all of these kind of things, whereas in property, as I say, what do you do? Am I doing a 1 to 2 bed conversion? Am I doing title splitting? Am I doing commercial conversion? Am I looking for HMOs? Am I looking for this? There's literally so many different things. Do I want a terraced house? Do I want an end of terraced house? Am I looking at bungalows? So again, just starting with looking at the property type, there are so many. And then once you've got that property type, what am I going to do with it? Is it going to be just a buy to let? Is it going to be supported living? Is it going to be out to serviced accommodation? Is it going to be an HMO? So again, so many different things that you can actually do with the property. And then when it comes to how can I fund it? Do you have your own money? Do you have an investor's finance? Do you want to go to the bank? Is it bridging finance? Is it cross collateralization? It just goes on and on and on. So when you're really looking at where to go, there are just so many. And when you start, hold on, having a cup of tea. When you start sort of looking down this road, even if you chose, let's say, serviced accommodation, again, you can run serviced accommodation in a boat, in a bungalow, in a mansion, so many things. So every step of the way, there is just all these choices. And I love a chap, if you don't follow him, you must, a chap called Paul Avins, Avins. And one of the things he talks about is decision fatigue. And this was huge for me. I don't know if anyone else, I get to 4:30 in the afternoon and I start to kind of fall off the wagon in all respects. Whereas normally I wouldn't even consider a biscuit. If there was a biscuit there at 4:30 in the afternoon, I might eat it. If I am really head down trying to do a project at 4:30 in the afternoon, I'm really struggling. And that's because quite often, especially if you're a mum, no disrespect to you chaps, but generally we think about a million things a day. And by that point in the afternoon, you've had so many choices, so many decisions that you start to lose that ability to make a decision. And that is how it comes with all of those elements of a property business. Where on earth do you start? How do you know it's very good? You'll do an SA course, you want to do that. You do an HMO course, you want to do that. Somebody talks about social housing. Somebody talks about supported living. And you're kind of there going, oh, well, I tried to do rent to rent, had 5 no's, so I better try something else. So it's really key when we're in this kind of overwhelm. I hope everyone can feel my overwhelm. It's, we must start thinking through, but where do we start? Okay, so the simplest way for me to see how people are moving forward and where they're going is I immediately, when I have somebody that I'm coaching, I literally look and see what is their goal. Okay, so simple as that. What is their goal? And generally, the goal will say something like, I want to be financially free, or I want to have, 5 properties. So it's always very generic. So what is financially free? Well, that means, to me, financially free is going to be very different to somebody else's financial freedom. Some people want, £100,000 a month, and some people are happy with £3,000 a month. So being financially free is totally different. So I always say, go for your financial goal. And quite often you'll have people who want to sack their boss. They want to get out of their job, don't they? So if that's the case, then they can start really thinking about, okay, well, what do I earn net now? And that is the figure that I'm looking for. And generally it's always advisable to go for double what you take home pay, because obviously there are, you might have a property that's had a flood or something and you're not earning from it. So yeah, you always want to make sure. So this is where we start thinking about what that financial goal might be. Now, generally, you'll have anything, as I say, so replacing your income, but a lot of people seem to throw out this £10,000 a month. That seems to be what fits for everyone. But for some, that'll be too far. And for others, that'll be way too low. So really sit and think about your financial goal and how that works for you. Because if £10,000 is just too far a jump for you, don't go for that. Go for 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000, whatever it is. But again, if 10 grand is too low, go for 50, 60, 100, whatever it is for you. Okay, so what will that look like? And this is really key. And we'll take just a couple of moments on goals, because most people go over them. And again, I was speaking to Paul Merrick, and he, again, last week, we were speaking about having that emotion around what you tell yourself. So if you literally say, I want to earn 10 grand, and there's nothing there, it's like verbatim, you're just saying that, that's never going to get you anywhere. Whereas if you say, I'm going to earn 10 grand, and suddenly in your head, you see, a lovely new car. Maybe it's, I don't know, BMW, maybe it's a Mercedes. I have no idea, not really into cars. Maybe it's a holiday. I can visualize that. I can really visualize the whole family, walking in the airport, walking out, getting on that plane, that excitement. I can feel it now. You get off the plane at the other end, and when they open when you walk out of the plane and you have, well, for me, it'll be a hot country, and that heat hits you and you're like, wow. So that feeling, how are you feeling? What will your life look like? Will your kids, would you send them to private school? Would you buy them, I don't know, a property course? What would you do? What would you do with this money? And what would your life look like? And the main thing that I think is really powerful is just imagine, okay, so tomorrow morning you wake up and you've got, automatically, or as automatic as running a property business is, but let's say you've got enough properties that bring you in generate a monthly income of 10 grand. So what will your life look like? And take into consideration, we're not giving up our job to take on another job. You would have automation, you'd have systemization, you might have a, letting agent, you might have a management agent looking after your property, whatever it is. But imagine what your rich life, I hear people say, what would that look like? So when you open your eyes and you stretch out and you're thinking, what am I going to do today? What are you doing? And really, really spend time in that. And I call it, well, I don't call it, but it is called imagined reality. And it's incredibly powerful. And once you start feeling what that is, what that experience is, another question that I ask is, where are you feeling that? So for me, imagining jumping off that aeroplane, it's in my stomach. But for some people, it's in their chest. And for some people, it's in your head. So where is it? Think about it now. Where is that excitement, that feeling, that emotion? Is it in your stomach? Is it in your chest? Or is it in your head? Now, wherever that is, that's where you need to start thinking and being. So as much as you can, spend your time in that imagined reality. Now, minimum you should do it is 5 minutes when you wake up in the morning, literally spend, just literally close your eyes and imagine now the story. Imagine it as a story. Imagine it as your film. Imagine you are the star of your film and you're watching yourself leading that. What does it feel like? So 5 minutes in the morning and then 5 minutes at night. And I can tell you, I can be a bit of an insomniac, but you start thinking about that and boom, What a wonderful way to fall asleep. And then your subconscious will start taking over. And the more you think and you live in this imagined reality, you will get there. So think of the Wright brothers. Okay. Do you think they sat there thinking, oh, I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to get into the air. I'm never going to fly. And people literally thought they were nutters. They were nutters. I mean, who would have thought that you could just, climb into the sky? It was impossible. So whatever you're thinking, it might feel impossible to you, but it is not. If you live in that, if you live in where you want to be, your subconscious, your whole being will work you towards doing that. And that's where you get things like people talking about serendipity. Oh, I had this thing and somebody, cropped up and that was amazing. It was exactly what I was looking for, or this course came up, or so. But be open, guys. You've got to be aware when these snippets come to you, because quite often people that aren't successful and don't get there, they've had all the opportunities, they've just ignored them or not accepted them. So be aware not to lose any of those. So once you've really got that and you know how you're going to feel, then live in that. Okay, so that's the first one, get that goal. Then the second one is, and we're going to have 5 plans really, so the first one's goal, and the second one is your mindset. Wow, guys, I always thought, having gone quite academically, normal private primary school, I was told I needed to pass my 11 plus. So I worked quite hard, moved past my 11 plus, went on to grammar school, went on to university, went on to, oh God, the dogs are going mad, went on to work for a big blue chip company. So I worked for L'Oreal, where all they did was so much training. It was amazing, absolutely brilliant. So I just thought, as long as you know stuff, you'll be successful. But for some reason, that didn't really necessarily work. Things would work to a certain amount, but not really. And since I've come into the property world, it's really become clear. And some people say it's as small as 5% strategy and 95% mindset. Now, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. But take it that it is a massive portion that is on our mindset. So you can fall into 2 camps. Generally, you can have a really positive person that they're like, yeah, no matter what, I'm just going to achieve it. And I'm just going to, they just seem to knock over any issues, don't they? Or they hit a big roadblock and they just go around it. Whatever it is, nothing stops them. They just seem to be completely impenetrable to any issues. And then you have other people who, it's kind of like, I just don't think I'm ever going to achieve anything. They make one phone call to an estate agent, they were a bit rude, and then they don't do it, or whatever it is. But there's always these kind of issues. And inherently, what we need to do is not complex. Okay. And pretty much everything that we need to do is easy to do, but equally, it's just as easy not to do these things. So I've got a couple of books to recommend to you. So one of them is called The Millionaire Next Door, which is by Thomas Stanley and William Danko. So if anyone is at hand, I'd appreciate it if you can write that in as I'm multitasking here. So The Millionaire Next Door, that's by Thomas Stanley and William Danko. And that is all about basically what millionaires do compared to what normal folk do. And it's as simple as things like, I don't know, and again, I'm just spouting some numbers, it's probably not correct, but the average millionaire might watch an hour and a half of TV a day, and a non-millionaire watches 9 hours of TV a day, something like that. So again, could we switch the TV off? Is that hard to do? Of course not. It's really easy to do. Could we do something else instead of watching TV? Absolutely. Could we do a course? Could we read a book? Could we do all of those things? And then, so I'll write that in. So The Millionaire Next Door by, Thomas Stanley. And then the other one is Secrets of Millionaire Mindset. So I think more Secrets of Millionaire Mindset by Harv Eker. And that's another really, really fantastic book. So what these books do is they kind of really highlight to us what exactly it is that it takes. What are the behaviors, of millionaires? What do they do? What is different? And remember that for some people, earning let's say £18,000 a year is their norm, and to jump to earning £50,000 a year or £100,000 a year or £250,000 a year, you do actually have to change what you do. Because there is that saying, isn't there? If you carry on doing the same stuff, you tend to get the same results. So be aware, if you want to change, you got to do things differently, and that can be pretty challenging, and it can bring up all of these things. So mindset, and I'm not going to go massively into mindset at all, but it is really, really key for us to start working on it. Now, it may be that you get success in certain areas and then not success in others. So basically, what I always find is if you are not getting the results that you want, really have a look. And in fact, I did a great interview with Lee Rubeck last week. So do go into my YouTube channel and have a look at that. And that was all about, well, how can you control your results? Because really, you try everything, don't you? But what was an absolute game changer for me was when I understood that actually your results come from what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what you're doing. And that sounds really obvious, doesn't it? But actually, I spent years and years and years not knowing how to make changes. I was trying to do this and trying to do that, and nothing necessarily changed. So then I started looking at, well, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I doing? And let's be fair, something like procrastination is a classic example, isn't it? If you're a procrastinator, that's why you're potentially not getting to where you're going or where you want to go. And in fact, I was coming to recommend a book later, Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. That's a great one. He talks about if you have procrastination, just don't do it, get someone else to do it. I really like that kind of ethos and that strategy. So yeah, if you have mindset, if you're aware of mindset stuff, and what I would say is really start to be aware of what you say to yourself. And one of the most important things, and this has caused people to weep while having coaching with me, so poor people who have wept in my presence, but you will hear people saying things like, oh, well, that'll never happen to me, or I've tried everything and I can't get a rent to rent. Or I had a classic one last week where the people said, such a lovely couple, but they said there are no deals in our area, and they lived in a really big city. There's no deals, there's nothing out there, it's the wrong time to invest. I mean, there's and guess who told him that? Their estate agent. You can't make it up, can you? So really make sure that you are listening to what you say, and generally even worse, internal stuff. So you'll hear, I don't know, your people say, oh, I'm never going to do that, oh, I'm so stupid. They'll berate themselves verbally. But even worse, and so you could hear those people and you can maybe encourage them and say, of course you're not, and you can support them. But it's the people that say all of those terrible things to themselves internally and they don't externalize that. Guys, if you would say that, would you say those things to your kids? Would you say those things to your granny? Would you say those things to your best friend? Of course you wouldn't. You would never, ever say terrible things to those people. So don't say them to yourself. And that always seems easier said than done, but listen to yourself, okay? And really understand that is, really, really important to listen to what you say to yourself. Sorry, just having tea. So that's really mindset. And the one book I would highly recommend, well, two books actually, sorry, that I'd really recommend for that is, one is by Napoleon Hill, and it is called Success Through a Positive, oh my gosh, my mental attitude by Napoleon Hill. Unbelievable. I think for me, and again, books affect people in different ways. Literally a life-changing book for me. So much stuff in there. It's really old. It talks about, like, in the olden days, all of these things that we think are new and different today. And I can see somebody in the audience who's recently read it as well. So I know that she said it was, really great, but it's just brilliant. And don't just read these books, guys, study these books. So I'm literally studying a book at the moment, and I'm literally, I'm there writing in it. I'm, putting down the pages, really, really understanding daily and reading a couple of pages and actually doing the work that is required with those books. It's very, very important. So that's the first one. And then the second one, and I was pretty excited when my daughter started at her new school. They actually talk about having this book. So it's Carol Dweck. How do you spell her name? I think that's how you spell it. So it's Mindset by Carol Dweck. And it's all about having, I can't remember what it's called, like an open mindset. What is it? It's basically just being open, and really, rather than having a closed mindset where you're kind of like, I can't do that. And a bit like those guys last week that were saying to me, there's none of this and there's none of that. There's no deals. And those things, those are the people that are missing the opportunities. So remember when we talked about having a goal, when you're living in this imagined reality, your subconscious opens up. You become so much more open to opportunities. But what happens is we get the wrong kind of mindset, and that shuts us back down. And then we don't see those opportunities. Absolutely everyone gets those opportunities. We're all equally fortunate. There is no luck or no luck. I'm sorry if anyone thought that they lived in a lucky or unlucky world. It is literally what we do to get there. And that is really, really key, that we know we have absolute control of our destiny and where we want to go. Because I think for some people, they can feel overwhelmed and not be able to have control. So this route, guys, is how we can overcome that overwhelm. Okay, so we've now talked about having a goal. We've got that direction. We're living in that imagined reality. And now we're really aware of our mindset. So if we're saying negative things to ourselves, or we're not getting the results that we've got, then exactly. Ali said, fixed mindset and then having a flexible mindset. It's a good book. Yeah, it is a great book. And can you imagine, my daughter is growing up being trained in having this open mindset and not having a closed mindset. I mean, amazing. I wish I'd had that at school. What an incredible opportunity to start life with. Okay, so next thing is, right, so you've got your goals. You've got your goals, you've got your mindset, and then you've got all of these opportunities, haven't you? So where are we going to start? We've got SA, we've got HMO, we've got, I can see Jason, we've got short leases, all of these kind of things. So what are we going to do? Well, I think it's easiest to put it into two camps. Okay, is the ones with money and the ones with less money. Let's put it like that, because inherently, and let's start with the ones with a big pot of cash. Okay, if you've got a big pot of cash and you want to sack the boss quickly, really have a look what it would take if you literally just went shopping. Now, that might seem like a little bit of a kind of odd one and against everything, because haven't you, everyone? You must buy a below market value, and it must be it must be a buy, refurbish, refinance, and put all your money out, and it must be this and it must be that, and you can't do this and you can't do that. But actually, I was talking to somebody who had £600,000 and only wanted to generate a turnover of 10 grand a month. Well, you could just literally go shopping as quickly as you can to get that amount of money. Okay, now I'm not saying that this is for everyone, but sometimes just be aware that if you are making £1,000, £1,500 from a property, then actually it might only take you 2 years or 5 years to pull that money out that you've invested, let's say, in the deposit. So really kind of start to consider also that generally, and even now, property prices are going up, not as rapidly, because we have had a crazy growth, haven't we, in the last number of years, but they're generally still going up. And so what we need to know is there is never been a time where houses go back to being, you know, £2,000, which is what they were like, you know, not that many years ago. So there's always going to be an increase in property prices. So it's really thinking about, do I want to just go and do something a bit more quickly, such as purchasing properties? Because even that in itself, to some people, is going to come up with challenges, you know, learning about conveyancing, dealing with solicitors, dealing with estate agents. And let's be fair, 1 in 3 deals fall out of bed. It is not that quick. It's not necessarily that easy. Are each step to purchasing that hard? No, but sometimes you need a bit of help and support. So never discount having, you know, when you've got a big pot of cash, just going and actually utilizing that money. And that is, think about, and I think one way to help us move forward is work out with inflation how much you're losing on your money per day. Because guess what? You know, when you work out what you're potentially losing each day, go and use that money. Go and get it going. Do not just be sat there looking for this absolute, you know, looking for the unicorn horn in the property out there, because it's not necessarily going to be that quick to go and find what you want to do. So yeah, I think if you've got money, I always, you know, offer that as something to think about. And then obviously think about, well, what will it take? And I'll come on into a bit more detail. I'll actually show it later. But how many properties would it take to just purchase to answer your, you know, your goal requirement? And then how long is that going to take? So obviously, you've really got to think about just buying one property. How long is that going to take? 3, 5 months? And then be aware of how long it might take you to find that. So especially if it was a below market value property, for some people, it would take them 6 months to find that below market value property. And then it can take another 3-4 months to get that over the line before you've even started to refurbish it, which could take another 3 to 6 months. So it's, that can take 18 months before you've even started earning from that property. Whereas actually, if you were only leaving, let's say 2 years worth of deposit in there, it could be quite comparable, couldn't it? So just sort of think about how we can do all of these things. And the other one was for people who have kind of money and maybe a bit more time. If you've bought a whole, if you've got a whole host of kind of courses that you've done, I'd really advise you to do all of the courses, because you've got this incredible opportunity to really understand all the information that you've got and read through it and see what resonates with you, because that's what's really key. I think when you're sort of without money, or you've got less money, for instance, you don't necessarily have a choice. So I'll talk through that in a minute, but I didn't have a choice. I literally just had a few things that would enable me to move forward when I started with property with not that much money. So for you, if you've potentially got money and time, I would really advise you to look at absolutely the core, the kind of core strategy that really resonates with you, because we want to be doing something that we love. Because once we're doing something that we love, it's not a job anymore, is it? It's something that we've really we've come on board, we're really enjoying it. It's going to be just a lifestyle then. And you'll hear so many people who talk about the fact that they work really hard, but they don't consider it to be work because they love it. You get people that go on holiday, don't they? They take their families to places and they carry on doing a bit of work. Now, is that bad? No, not necessarily. I actually think if you really love what you do, you want to keep having that as part of your lifestyle. If you really need a break from it, then of course you must take a break from it. But let's not follow what other people tell you should do. Just do what you feel you want to do and what works for you. So again, take that time to learn as much as you can so that you really truly understand what resonates with you and what kind of property business will work for you. And then once you've chosen that, go back to the goal, go back to the mindset, and do that until successful. Okay, don't do it for 3 weeks and have a few knocks in the road and think, oh, this is not for me. You've just done all this research. You've just really understood where you're going. So stick with it. Keep going, okay, until you're successful. And that's where it's really important to be in communities like this, to have accountability partners, accountability groups, to go and attend lots of networking meetings. Now, if you need the support, I would be going to more property networking meetings to really find people who think like you, who have walked the path before you, because it would be highly unlikely that there isn't somebody else who's done what you want to do and have done it extremely successfully before. So, okay, so Dee, we haven't actually touched on that. So we'll come back to time as well. So that's a good one. In fact, we'll touch that now. So if you've got money, Dee, and lacking time, then again, that's great. You might want to JV with somebody. You might want to, just invest the money. But again, you would still need to find the time to do your due diligence on on the type of properties, on the investors that you're working with, the JV partners. You need to be really educated. So a lot of people, when I talk to them about serviced accommodation, they're like, oh, I handed over my property to a management agent and it's not working. They're clearly rubbish. And then I go and check the saturation of that area. And like I had one last week in Liverpool last week, there were 345 properties empty, I think on like the Thursday, 345 properties empty. I mean, what's the management company supposed to do? Perform miracles? I mean, there's a lot of saturation there. Okay, so are there ways around it? Yes, potentially. But again, you've got to really understand your business and what you're doing. So if you are time poor, absolutely, you can find ways of moving forward, and maybe you could get a business partner. But again, please don't jump in. Would you marry somebody that you've only been on 2 dates? Highly unlikely. Treat your business partner the same. Spend a lot of time getting to know them, understanding their values. Make sure you do personality testing. Make sure that you have a business partner agreement, so to speak, so everyone knows where they stand. So I hope, Dee, that kind of gives you a few ideas on how to do that. So we've talked about goals, we've talked about mindset, we've talked about if you have money. So what happens if you're sort of cash strapped, so to speak? So you haven't got as much money. What might you do? Well, I actually think having no money or not very much money is fantastic, okay? Because it makes you really creative. I actually find that when there's a lot of money around, we can be like, oh, I don't really know what to do. I don't want to get it wrong. Whereas really, when you have limited resources, it makes you very creative. It makes you kind of think of new ways of doing deals, of having all of these kind of different thought processes, who to attract, who to follow, what have other people done, and you become incredibly creative. But inherently, if you want to start quickly and move forward, I mean, there are others that you can do But for most people, it tends to be rent to rent or deal sourcing. So that tends to be where you're at. So you could do rent to serviced accommodation, which again, guys, remember that is a hospitality business. Okay, so you haven't got property, you haven't bought property. It is a hospitality business that you can grow, you can get cash flow, which then in turn you can start on your property business. You could do rent to HMO, house of multiple occupancy. And again, that is a business because again, you don't own it. But both of those are really great ways of getting into this world of property. And then deal sourcing, sort of deal packaging, is something that you can do with very little money. You can really become an expert in that area. And what a great skill to really understand an area and find fantastic deals and work with investors. I mean, it can be a massive, massive growth curve to really kind of help you on your way there. So with those, again, remember what we were talking about is really think about what resonates with me. Now, as I say, you can do other things, but those tend to be the quickest to get, quickest route to market, so to speak. So yeah, that's what I'm just mentioning here. So again, with those, for me, I felt very uncomfortable. I was totally new to property and deal sourcing just seemed a step too far for me. Again, that was my mindset. I'm sure I would have been perfectly capable of doing that. So to me, I kind of thought, oh, I better do rent to rent then. And then with rent to rent, I was terrified of tenants. I was, living in that world of just hearing the horror stories of tenants and how awful they all were. And clearly not all of them are. You have a few that are an issue, but the majority are not too bad. So I was terrified. And also it tended to require a lot of renovation. I had no idea about how to put, fire doors in and all of those kind of things. I'm sure, again, not that complex, but at that moment, my mindset didn't allow it. So I've always loved business, as I mentioned. So hospitality just seemed sensible. So I thought, oh, well, that seems really great. So with these things at this stage, if, like Dee's mentioned, you're limited for time and limited for money, guys, you need to pick one strategy, or everyone needs to pick kind of one thing to do if you want to get somewhere quickly. So you need to pick one strategy and become an absolute hero, an absolute expert. So I often get people coming on and going, yeah, I'm doing service accommodation. I've done the service accommodation course and I've done a rent to rent course. I'm like, awesome. And then they start asking, quite sort of simple questions potentially. And I'm there going, have you done the course again? Have you, read any books? Are you on any of the Facebook groups? Have you listened to any podcasts? And quite often people believe that just by doing a course, that's it. That's all they have to do. Now, just remember, when you do a course, and as I say, I've done quite a few courses recently, you remember a tiny proportion of it. I literally did a course in June and redid it in September. And it was as if I've never done it before in my life. It was such a lot of new information that you only recollect a small amount of it. So we need to be becoming real experts. So really consider absolutely everything that there is out there, and especially all of these things nowadays. We're so fortunate. There's podcasts on everything, there's books on everything, there's WhatsApp groups on everything, there's Facebook groups on everything, wherever you want to go. YouTube is an incredible resource. I mean, there's nothing that you can't do on YouTube. I'm always really shocked what you can do. You can learn to draw, you can learn to mend a car, you can do so much to learning on there. So become a real expert. And again, like we talked about with when you've got money and you've made your plan, go and do that plan until successful. Because again, with rent to rent, is it easy to get a rent to rent property? No. Is it easy now? Was it easy before? Is it easy in the future? No, not necessarily, but all the little steps to get a rent to rent are pretty simple. You know, they are calling up an agent, they are going to networking events and meeting landlords, they are talking about what your business is. And if you haven't, do go onto my YouTube channel, Emma Howitt Pure Abodes, where I actually a few weeks ago did rent to rent hacks, and that's really good to give you that confidence to get over it. But make sure you keep going until you are successful. Do not start thinking, oh, I've got to do this, you know, this has come up and I can't do it, or I've had 10 no's, nobody will give me a rent to rent. Guys, it's a numbers game. Get over yourselves, read the book Go for No, and literally go for no. Gamify it, make it a bit of a thing, and that goes with whatever you're doing. Everything is a numbers game. Have KPIs, look at industry standards. You know, if you want to get, you know, 3 properties this year, know that 1 in 3 fall out of bed. So you're going to need to make, you know, to go ahead with 9 properties, because some of them are going to fall out of bed. And then on top of that, how many people, you know, how many viewings do you need to make? How many phone calls do you need to make to the agents? All of these things, you need to start really breaking it down and kind of moving on. And this is, you know, something that I'm talking to myself as well with these things. It's so important to keep moving forward with that. So next up, once we've kind of thought of our goals, we know that we need to work on our mindset every day. We need to have, if we've got money, if we haven't got money, what is this plan of action? So again, I mentioned, didn't I, who, not how. So especially for D, this is a great one. If you haven't got time, who can help you? So stop saying, how can I achieve it? Who can help me achieve it? So that might be, you know, getting a virtual assistant on board. So if you don't know, I help people find virtual assistants at theviva.club. And that's what helped me. I was able to go much more quickly by having that help, that administrative help, so I could be really much more strategic in the business as well. So D, that would probably be really useful for you as well. So then what we look at, and I'm just going to hopefully this will do, so I'm going to bring up a whiteboard. Feel a bit like Blue Peter, actually, one that I've prepared earlier. So let me just find the page that I prepared, and then I can share it. Anyone can share. Oh, is this not going to work? Sharing your screen will close the whiteboard for everyone. Oh, so I believe that I am already sharing my screen, so that's handy. So what I've got here, guys, is for those of you who are on Clubhouse, I've literally got just a very simple page, and at the top it is got 10 grand goal per month, so just an average, what a lot of people want to do. And then the type of deal and the number of deals, because remember, we need to get these KPIs going. So the more kind of we just go out and randomly say, oh, I'm just going to get a rent to rent, you know, generally you'll have people that have, let's say, 40 no's before they get a yes. So go for 40, you know. And even if you don't, even if you've got no's still at 40, then kind of keep going back and think, well, what am I doing wrong? What can I improve? You know, practice on people that have got rent to rents. What can I say? What can I do? The same as if you're not getting success with building relationships with estate agents, with investors, speak to other people who are being successful and taking it through. So then we're looking at, for instance, if we wanted to do get £10,000 per month and you had decided to go down the rent to rent SA route, generally they make a profit of £800 to £1,000 per month. So if that was the case, you would need, and I'm just going to write it in here, you would need 12 and a half properties, for instance, and again, it depends on what size it is, but let's say it's a 2-3 bed property. You would need 12 and a half properties to get you to that goal. So here we can really start moving back, can't we? So we actually know that we need, so my goal for this year, if I'm going to get there in a year, I need 12.5 properties. You can get there quicker, but that can get you there. So HMOs. So let's say with HMOs, you're making £1,000 per HMO. So again, it might be more, it might be less. I'm just doing a generic offering here. So then you would be needing to have 10 properties. And that would maybe get you there. Well, that would look to be getting you there. Then deal sourcing. So let's say you're doing simple deal sourcing and you're selling £3,000 a pop. You can sell them for more. But just for instance, then you would need to be doing 3.3333 deals per month. How about you decided that you actually wanted to do commercial sourcing? So this would be, let's say you've got McDonald's who are looking for a new place to open, and they will pay a lot of money to find a really great site for their new site. You know, a lot of them are looking to expand, you know, hundreds of shops in a year, so they can't do it all themselves, and they might pay £20,000 or much more. But let's say it was 20, then you'd only need to find one deal every 2 months. So basically, you know, half a deal per month. And again, if you were purchasing to serviced accommodation, perhaps it was a no money left in deal. You know, whatever it might be, it may be that the numbers stack slightly differently. And if you've got a really great mortgage or no mortgage, you know, maybe it would only require you to have, you know, 6 to 8 properties to get you there. Well, if you were doing buy to lets, now generally buy to lets get much less, don't they? So you might be looking, if let's say you're doing £400 a month from a buy-to-let, again, you can get much more than that for some, but if it's 400, then that's 25 properties. Okay, you might want to do commercial deals, and again, gosh, they're you know, that can be big or small, but it might be for the ones that you're looking at 1 to 5 deals, or it might be an apart hotel, and again, depending on how big that is, you might need 1 to 2 apart hotels to hit where you're at. So can you see, guys, this is just really, really working down into how we can look through, let me shut that off, how we can look through at getting these KPIs to knowing where we're going. And the only final one that I haven't covered is where. Guys, please don't look at the whole of the UK, because the screen is blank on YouTube. Oh, that's typical, D. I'll have to add it in as a link underneath. Yeah, so what is where. Please, guys, make sure that you become an expert in your area or an area. It doesn't have to be your area, but you really want to become an expert to get somewhere quickly. Now, obviously, you know, some people are able to, and especially when they're really established and they've hit their goals and they're already financially free, they can pick and choose. But when you're still on that journey, when you're still on that path to getting you there, you really will, remember we talked about luck, you will start generating your own luck when you start to be open to what's going on in your area. Because guess what, you'll speak to, you know, the dads at the edge of the football field, you'll be talking to the mum at the school gates, you'll be driving past empty properties, you'll be going to networking events in your area, you'll be talking to business people, you'll be talking to other property investors, you will be in the networking groups online with them, Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, all of these kind of things, and that will really enable you to going back to having this goal and this mindset where you're suddenly open to receiving all of these opportunities that definitely do come your way, guys. Okay, so these are really key. So inherently, just going back into what we've been covering off here, is start off with a goal. Start off what you need to achieve. Really think about your mindset, working forward with that. where are you at currently? Do you have money? Do you not have money? And that changes over time. And then that's why quite often we suddenly start getting money. And again, it's all like, oh, I don't really know which way to turn, because now I've got money and I need to start thinking differently. So again, go back and go through this process and then look at the plan of action. How am I going to get there? What do I need to get there? So what strategy am I going to use? How many properties do I need to get? And then go and do it. Go and stick to that plan of action, and really, really ensure that you keep going until successful. Do not change at all in getting there. So I hope that was helpful, guys. It's a really nice way of just helping people understand what it is that they need to get a direction, because we often get into this overwhelm. So this will be on YouTube. Well, it is on YouTube. This is YouTube live, but we will on Emma Howitt Pure Abodes, but we will be chopping it into shorter bite-sized chunks as well. And I will be back. Oh, it's half term next week, isn't it? So I won't be back next week as it's half term, and obviously it's important that we live our lives as we want to. So I will be spending some time with with probably only Rosabella, because the boys will be doing other stuff. But yes, that is all good. So yeah, do give us your feedback, guys. I hope that was really helpful, and yeah, look forward to catching up in a couple of weeks' time after half term. And yeah, do remember to go and follow me on YouTube. Okay, guys, thanks so much. Take care.